Thank you very much for inviting me to speak today, and thank you to all the speakers so far, and especially to Helen for coping with those technical difficulties. It's been very, very interesting and quite rewarding. I will talk about the UK response to Asian hornet, which is why I requested to follow on from Helen, because it follows on very nicely. And to some extent, I don't really apologise for, but there's quite a lot of overlap with what Helen said. But hopefully, I should feed in some more information as we go along. So I work for the National Bee Unit, which is part of the Animal and Plant Health Agency. And we work funded, if you like, by DEFRA, the Department of Environment and Rural Affairs. We're responsible only for, the MBU is only responsible for England and Wales, but Scotland and Northern Ireland have their own inspectorates, and we work very closely. All what I talk about today in this is regarding data from England and Wales. We have about 60 bee inspectors with a management team of 7. And the inspectors only work in the summer months for us, normally for around 6 months. Their season has been extended over the last 6 years to help us with Asian hornet work, and that funding has been approved by DEFRA. We work in 8 regions. You may ask why am I telling you that? That will become quite important in the next part, really, and it enables us to do a very, very rapid response. The Asian hornet is a government-led response in the UK. We work in partnership with beekeeping associations and many others, including Non-Native Species Secretariat and the UK CEH, as Helen described earlier. We're very much in the eradication phase of the contingency plan, and there's no plans to change that at the moment, though every winter that is reviewed depending on what we find each year. We also have support from other parts of the Animal and Plant Health Agency. For example, our wildlife officers do the nest destructions for us. We also have access to other specialisms through our contracts department, and for example, tree climbers, as you'll see pictures of later on. Our response is flexible and proportionate, and by that we mean we split it up into a regional response. So each of our teams of those 8 regions, which divide the 60 bee inspectors between them, are trained individually to act on Asian hornet. Of course, we move inspectors from one region to another when necessary, but the basis is that we can cope with many responses across each region simultaneously. We haven't had to needed that so far. As Helen described, we've had a very low level so far of positive incursions, if you like. So staff training wise, it was been mentioned several times, one of the real problems with Asian hornet when you don't have a lot of it in your country is the confidence of people for spotting it. And we have sent inspectors across to Jersey. We've had 10, I think, so far who have gone, and as soon as we're fully out of the current pandemic, we will send more across to Jersey. And that's been very beneficial for us. We have at least one per region across the country who's been there. We've also done other lessons identified from the previous outbreaks, and a very key one, which had a very big impact in the last season, is our track and trace app. Which allows us to respond rapidly for data to be entered in the field, for that to be seen by managers and other inspectors, and for them to act on it. And I'll show you some maps from that later on. We also supply each of the regions with contingency boxes that have a whole range of very basic equipment, ranging from traps, Asian hornet suits, bait stations, walkie-talkies, binoculars, and a whole list of stuff that's not shown here, including identification sheets and the like. But that's just so they have that at hand, based in an office within their region, so they can pick it up on the way to a confirmed sighting. Public awareness was mentioned by Helen, and the Non-Native Species Secretariat, in cooperation with us all, do a huge range of work across government bodies and non-governmental organisations. And there's a huge list, including National Trust, Royal Yachting Association, Bug Life, Wildlife and Wetlands Trust, and a whole list of examples here, but also including other parts of our agency, so plant inspectors and of DEFRA, Natural England, the Forestry Commission, and we have also done work with pest controllers. We've designed a specific awareness leaflet for them, telling what to do if they suspect Asian hornet, in other words, how to report it, and that, in fact, at the moment, they're not allowed to do the destructions. It comes to us and we handle them. We've also worked closely with Bee Wars, which is the Bee Wasp and Ant Recording Society, which is part of that volunteer network that Helen mentioned earlier. And they have a huge number of entomologists and interested parties, over 9,500 members across the country, who report insects, and that's where a lot of our reports come from. Beekeeper awareness also falls within the MBU's remit, and this is a key part of our remit. We work very closely with the beekeeper associations. In the event of an outbreak, we send out news items and alerts. We've got an RSS feed that most associations have plugged straight into their websites, so they get as soon as we have a confirmed sighting, they get that alert immediately. We also send alerts directly to beekeepers, whether or not they're a member of an association, directly within about 40 kilometres of a confirmed sighting in most years. We have a huge amount of data, like our ID sheets shown at the bottom of this slide, but also including posters, how to make monitoring stations, traps, which has been recently updated, various articles and papers, how to report sightings. We've got several PowerPoint videos on there, which were new in 2020, and new this year, we've added historic information on sightings and nests, so I'll mention them in brief, but if you go to this website, you will be able to see details about every single confirmed sighting we've had, and every single nest finder we've had. We've got loads of images of Asian hornets and nests available to everyone as well, and we do a whole range of talks, mainly through the Bee Health Advisory Forum, but also at national shows and local association talks. The Bee Health Advisory Forum is our stakeholder forum, which has the BBKA, Welsh beekeepers and various other parties, including the bee farmers within it. Of course, the press does its best to help us, and yes, that's not an Asian hornet and not Vespa velatina. We correct as much as we can. DEFRA works directly with newspapers and tries to correct these images, but much of this press articles actually help us with people being aware that the Asian hornet is out there. ID-wise, yes, I can argue that, you can argue both ways with this one. Awareness is good, incorrect identification is wrong, but the more people we've got sending in the reports, especially with photos, the better. This year we've done a latest article in cooperation between ourselves and UKCEH. We've done a nice Beecraft article on Asian hornet, showing the most commonly misidentified species and where they are found, what time of year we get those reports. So that's all based on those graphs that Helen showed earlier, and give a good indication of what we have. I don't think they're any different to what most people see, obviously European hornet being the main one misidentified. When we work with beekeepers, we work with Asian hornet teams. These aren't quite as grand as they sound, but they are very, very important to us. So it's engaging with the BBK and Welsh Beekeepers Association, and you can go on to the BBK website, and they have an Asian hornet tab, and on there you can see a map. And each of these blue dots on it are regional coordinators, and the red dots are verifiers. And these are people who have knowledge of what Asian hornet is, and they are available to come out to be called out by members of the public if they suspect they have an Asian hornet. Now, some of these go directly to them, but in some cases, when we have leads that come through from the UKCEH, and we think there's not a photograph, but there's enough info there that we want someone to check it out, but we don't want to send an inspector, then we send it to these AHAT teams. And I guess we use that somewhere around, at the moment, the region of sort of 20 to 30 times a year. Now, all responses that go from UKCH to people who don't have a photograph with their lead also get a link to the site. So it probably used more times than that, it's just not recorded. Asian Hornet teams are key to our response. You'll see about 50% of our sightings have come in from beekeepers. About 50% of the confirmed sightings are from members of the public. But a lot of awareness raising is also done by those beekeepers who are AHATs and the like. So reporting sightings in the UK, the app has been mentioned. That is our major way. There's also an online form and an alert email. We're trying to move people over to the app because it records more information. I'm sure most of you have suffered with emails that just say, I've seen an Asian hornet, and have no more information, which can be a pain to follow up. So we're trying to get people to use the app, and that is steadily increasing throughout the years. You can see here the increase of alerts in numbers from 2016 up to 2021. It was steadily increasing up to just under 10,000 in 2020. And there has been a sudden decrease by about half this year. It'll be interesting to see if that continues. Is that awareness improving? Only time will tell, or is that a consequence of COVID? We could debate that all day long. On average, we have about 4 confirmed Asian hornets per year, and I'll talk about them shortly. So we've had 23 confirmed sightings in the UK totally, 11 separate confirmed Asian hornet incursions, if you like, and this has been where there's no need for a full response. So these have been Asian hornets that come in some luggage from someone who's just returned from holiday in Europe, or they've come out of a vehicle that's just returned, or a container, a whole range of things, but they've basically been hitchhikers, if you like. So part of our response is in those initial stages to do quite a detailed investigation with the reporter before we actually launch our contingency response and get the inspectors there. So we get one inspector there to do the investigation and just hold off until we're sure it's not come out of a bag or out of a box, and we can explain that route. For the remainder 12, they have been responses where we've had flying, foraging Asian hornets. And this first one was in 2016 at Tetbury, and now we've had 12 nests from 10 queens. So in 2 cases, we discovered both the primary and secondary nest, not necessarily in that order. This is a map of the sightings. I won't go through this one by one, but basically you've got the 10 areas. They've very much got a southern distribution of the nest. The sightings, the other sightings, the independent sightings that have come in are a bit of a wider distribution, going up to Scotland, in fact, but they are not the nest ones. So these are just the nests, confirmed nests we've had so far, including this year's. I'm going to use an example, Ascot, which was the first one of the 2 nests this year, and this is an actual photo of the hornet. I'm sure you've all seen many of these, so I won't dwell on it for very long, but it was nicely swatted and sent in on the report, and immediately raised a response from us, and hornets were seen on the site very quickly after that. We tend to use these type of bait stations when we're following up, and these are not traps, so these are just attractants. We use Trap It in general, and that works very, very well. And we put a ring around the sighting within the first day of responding, and from then on we record on the app I mentioned earlier the lines of sight and return times that we see. We do quite a lot of comms in that initial stage of a response. I've mentioned some of these earlier, but the first part is where we put an alert on the gov.uk Asian Hornet rolling news page, and that's picked up by newspapers and the like. We also inform the Bee Health Advisory Forum We send an alert out to the local beekeepers. We contact separately local associations. There's quite a lot of duplication here, but not every group overlaps perfectly, so we tend to do it all. We also contact the Asian hornet teams directly to get them to encourage people to be doing trapping, or at least monitoring, using monitoring traps like I just showed on the last slide. And we also get involved with local councils and police. They're kept advised as the response goes along if we need roads to be blocked or the like. In 2021, we had two responses, Ascot and Portsmouth. They were both very late compared. Most of our nests have been found in September. And so the first one in Ascot was reported on the 6th of October, confirmed on site by the bee inspector the next day, nests found on the 11th, and then the nest killed and removed the next day and sent up to a lab in Yorkshire for analysis. These responses are very fast. The initial responses, Tetbury days, was 2 weeks. We spent a lot of time looking wide because we were expecting it to be already here and there to be many nests in the area. We now limit our searches at the start very much to within 1 kilometre, and all the hornets found in the area so far by genetic analysis have been shown to be from each individual nest each time. So we don't believe we've got an established population. I'll go on to say more about that as we go forward. Because these are in October and our weather's probably not as good as for most of you, the actual limit in October is the weather. They took 4 days because it took that to get 1/2 a day of good weather. So they were there on site, they had the traps out, they just weren't seeing foraging hornets. And that is shown by Portsmouth, which was the second one this year, reported on the 29th of October, far worse weather obviously, confirmed on site on the same day. Nests found the subsequent day, they had 1/2 a day of weather, and just by following hornets flying back and forth from the bait stations, marking them, recording return times, and putting it onto the app, they very quickly narrowed into a few trees, and the nest was discovered. I mean, one of the benefits of this, or one of the reasons why this works in the UK, is because we've not got multiple nests in an area. So just to give you pictures of Ascot, which I'll flash through, you've all seen this sort of thing. So this is normal. This is like behaviour inspectors after they found the nest. They're all trying to confirm it's there. The normal number of inspectors in a response is about 4. But we normally bulk it up with some inspectors who are nearby from other regions to try and get that experience of doing track and trace. Though with the speed of these responses, we do often get very disappointed inspectors who have headed to join a response and then the nest is found and go home disappointed. And you can see the nest on the right-hand side of the tree, but you've all seen many of them. Oh, my slide has spun through on the left here. My apologies for that. So when necessary, we use tree climbers and cherry pickers to remove nests from the top of the trees. We've never had any problems with access. We always get permission from the landowners. We actually have legal rights we can use if necessary, but we've never had to utilise them. It's all done with just permission at the moment. And then the nests are removed and bagged up. Most of our nests are treated with Ficam-D, which is very effective. We tend to treat in the evening to check most of the hornets are back and then remove the nest the following morning. But that does depend on the area and other risks. In summary, all nests have been found in September to October. We've never found a winter nest that hasn't been killed by us. So far, we get several call-outs to them, but they are usually other wasp species or other things that aren't nests at all. We've done quite a lot of nest and DNA analysis, and so far we can say that all individuals analysed were from populations that were colonised in Europe and not a new incursion from Asia. You can see why we're interested in that. Very importantly, from the genetics, no queens found in the UK were offspring from any previous nests in the UK. That is limited, so this is from microsatellite analysis and then goes back a generation, but we've done it on all years so far. All the hornets, as I mentioned earlier, caught in the track and trace phase and in any subsequent traps after the nest is removed are all checked, and so far they have all, the last nest this year hasn't been analysed yet, so just bear with us on that, but that data will be up on BBase shortly. And so far all single hornets in that area have come from the nest there that was destroyed. And none of the nests so far have reached the stage of producing queens. Up till this year, that's still in progress, haven't got all that data yet, but looking promising. Some of them got to the stage of producing males, yes, we've had lots with diploid drones in them, but none have so far got to the stage of producing guides. So far, no confirmed Asian hornet nests in winter, as I said, and no evidence of an established population. Thank you very much, and I'll take any questions.